Welcome to the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education Competition Subgroup podcast. I'm Dan Manson, and with me today is Martin Carlisle from Carnegie Mellon University. Welcome to the podcast, Martin.
Well, thank you, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, we knew each other a few years back when you were at the Air Force Academy and very involved with the Air Force Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition team. Can you give us a little backstory on how you became involved with cybersecurity competitions and what really motivated you to do so?
Well, I was motivated by the students. They started participating in cyber competitions on their own initiative and then came to me to help them get excusal time from various military events so that they could participate in the competitions. And then I really professionalized the team, and we started calling ourselves the United States Air Force Academy Cyber Competition Team. We had formal practices like an intercollegiate football team would, and we went to around a dozen competitions per year. A lot of those virtually because they're at the beginning.
What really got the students excited about doing it? It seems that in addition to their regular course load at the Air Force Academy, it's like taking on a second set of courses. What motivated them to put in the time and effort to do this?
Well, I think one of the things that really motivated the students towards this is they found an area in which they could excel. And so they were willing to put in extra time. And you're right, it was a big commitment in addition to their coursework and military duties and athletic duties as well to spend on these competitions. And some people really would excel at certain coursework, and some people would excel as, say, squadron commanders, and some people would excel on our sports teams. But for these students, this was the way that they could really excel, and it was a way that they knew that they could really impact the future of the country through their service in the Air Force.
Is there something that you and the students see in these competitions that you don't see in traditional classroom experiences?
Well, one of the things that the CTF Capture the Flag competitions allow you to do is get very practical experience with state-of-the-art techniques. So you might see a particular attack on RSA encryption, and then you would have the opportunity to implement that for yourself. And with a Capture the Flag, you get very immediate feedback as to whether you're doing it correctly, right? You either get the flag or you don't get the flag. And so that gives them a real strong feedback on if they're mastering the techniques and the knowledge that's being challenged.
What was it like for your students to play the different types of competitions? Because in addition to CTF, they were playing the Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition. They were playing the competition with the different academies as well. And what did they find to be the benefits and the advantages of one competition over another?
Right. So the National Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition models more of what people do in industry and what often goes on corporate networks, where you have a network and you're trying to defend it against a determined adversary. The cyber defense competitions also really had a strong report writing element in terms of, can I explain what's going on to senior executives or managers? The CTFs, I think in general, the students did find more fun because this is where they had the opportunity to break things. And so instead of being the ones broken into and having to constantly defend themselves, they were seeing how to break into things and how to find vulnerabilities. And while most people don't actually engage in cyber attack, one of the things that I always told people was the importance of understanding how attackers work if you are going to be involved in defense. And otherwise, running checklists can seem very demotivational if you don't really understand the rationale behind why you're doing these things.
So learning offense helps you play better defense.
Absolutely.
Were there a team that you really remember? Did you have like an all-star team one year that swept the field? Did you have some experiences where there was a competition that really stood out in your mind where your team performed at the highest level?
Well, we did have a particularly good year where we came in second place in the National Collegiate Cyber Defense Exercise. We won the Inter-Service Cyber Defense Exercise. Our team was the #1 team in the U.S. in the NYU Poly Capture the Flag qualifying round, and we were the top team in the Western Hemisphere in the UC Santa Barbara International Capture the Flag.
That was an amazing year. Are there students, alumni that you stay in touch with, and are they making inroads into the security field, whether it's in government or commercial sector?
Yeah, I do keep in touch with quite a number of my former students, and those students are currently serving in the Air Force, defending our nation in the cyber domain.
That's a good news. We need more like that. How many students are in your club? Were in your club at the Air Force Academy? You have in competitions. There are a limited number of players for some of them. For example, for CCDC, some of the other competitions can have more players. But did you have a larger group in the club that were involved? And did you have like a first string, second string, third string team?
We didn't really do a first string, second string, third string. We had about 15 at our largest who were involved on the team, coming to the practices in the afternoons and participating in competitions. When we went to CCDC, we had to select down to 8.
Very good. Now let's move over to Carnegie Mellon. Tell us how you made the transition to Carnegie Mellon and to picoCTF, and how you became involved with picoCTF.
Sure. Well, after 20 years on the faculty at the United States Air Force Academy, I was looking for a different challenge. I became aware of an opportunity here at Carnegie Mellon to teach in our master's program in information security. And so I am now a teaching professor here in our Information Networking Institute. And one of the goals that I talked about during my interview was to bring back the picoCTF competition. It had run in 2013 and 2014, that had been in hiatus since then. And so after I arrived here, we did manage to launch again in the spring of 2017, and we'll be holding our 2018 competition starting September 28th over a 2-week period. So one of the things that I was really excited about was how picoCTF was a really good competition for beginners, and some of the other CTFs can be a bit overwhelming and discouraging if you're not used to the type of problems, whereas picoCTF provided a good learning curve for beginners to get involved.
I was at a Cyber Patriot camp for middle school students a few weeks ago, and I was talking to the instructor there, and he said, well, what else are you going to do? He said, well, we're going to do picoCTF. So it seems that picoCTF has become a staple, fun way of learning cybersecurity from the middle school level up. But I've used it with college students as well. It's a kind of game that I think appeals to a very broad audience.
Well, that's certainly our goal, and we try to put a game interface on the front to make it more entertaining. We're working very hard on the progression of problems this year to make sure that it's accessible to people who have no prior experience. This month, I'm actually teaching in the Pennsylvania Governor's School for the Sciences, which is a high school program here in Pennsylvania. And I have 56 students that I'm walking through picoCTF style challenges to introduce them to computer security concepts.
Can you walk us through this year's picoCTF? Is it a new scenario? Is it a new story? And can you give us an idea of what we're in store for?
So we do have a new story that we are rolling out, and I am not able to give you good teasers on that at this time, but you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook to learn more as we get closer to the competition. But we do have a new game that's been developed by our Entertainment Technology Center. We have a whole new collection of problems that students from our Plaid Parliament of Ponage, our team here at Carnegie Mellon, which has won DEF CON 4 times, which is more than any other team, have put together for us. And we've been working on developing learning objectives that we can give to teachers on this is what you should expect your students to learn if they complete the picoCTF challenges. We're developing some educational materials. And so we have a lot of exciting plans for this year.
So if I'm a high school computer science teacher and I really know nothing about cybersecurity, but I know that it's important, is picoCTF something that I can use as part of my teaching without knowing cybersecurity?
Absolutely. So Pico is designed for students to do exploration on their own. And so we have a number of teachers who have in the past given opportunities to their students to participate in picoCTF, and the students have learned an enormous amount. They do research on their own on the web. We encourage teachers to play along with their students. They can create accounts and play along. They are not eligible to win any of the prizes, but the picoCTF is really open to anybody who wants to get started in information security.
Have you heard stories from teachers that's thank you for picoCTF because of how they were able to go up the learning curve with their students and they developed some confidence in understanding cybersecurity because they played the game?
We have not collected feedback from teachers about their own learning through picoCTF, but we do have some fabulous comments from instructors about their students' participation. I have one here from a Pennsylvania high school teacher who said, in their 22 years of teaching computer science, nothing has ever inspired so many students to fight to get access in the computer lab and ask questions about bitwise arithmetic or syntax questions on languages they haven't learned in school. They said that students with natural math abilities as well as average math abilities, teams of girls, teams of guys, even seniors with full-blown cases of senioritis are all coming out of the woodwork.
That is fantastic. Is part of the reason for the success of picoCTF the team that you have that includes the entertainment part of Carnegie Mellon plus the CTF part, or are they able to really come together and build something that is engaging and educational?
They are, and so we have weekly meetings over the course of the spring between this team of students from the Entertainment Technology Center and our team from the Plaid Parliament of Ponage to make sure that the game and the problems were going to complement each other. So one of the things you'll see through the game is how the game element really ties to, for example, buffer overflows. And you'll see that not just in the problems, but also in the gameplay.
How many students will play picoCTF this fall?
We are hoping to have 20,000 participate this fall.
And you'll have a leaderboard, and are you going to have prizes? Is it
We will have a leaderboard. Yes, we'll have prizes. We'll have an award ceremony for the top team here at Carnegie Mellon. One of the things that I encouraged us to do for this participation is we've shifted from the spring, which we did in 2017, into the fall, and that'll enable students to use this, for example, on college applications as a demonstration of their abilities to talk about their success as they're filling out their college applications.
So for a high school student that wants to go to a college and really dig into cybersecurity, what can they say about playing picoCTF for a few years? What is it that would give them an edge over a student that was just taking coursework?
I think the two key things that a student would have from doing picoCTF is they would have demonstrated not only an ability to solve challenging problems in cybersecurity, but also really an ability to learn on their own. These things generally aren't taught in high schools, and the students who are learning these things and solving the picoCTF challenges have to do a lot of self-teaching, which is really valuable.
Mm-hmm. I've seen middle school students play CTFs, and I guess one question that I have is, should the parents ever be concerned about their students learning? Is there a point where too much knowledge is a bad thing for students at this age, or is it something that you see students as really being able to understand and use in the right context?
I mean, certainly one of the concerns that people often raise is, should we be teaching people these kinds of skills? And again, I have to emphasize that most people will use these skills to do defense. And a lot of times in the past, we saw people using offensive skills that they learned without a proper context. And so competitions like picoCTF give people a context where they, if they have a bent towards this kind of hacking or computer exploitation, can do it in a safe, controlled way, as opposed to trying it out on, company servers on the internet.
I use sports analogies probably way too much, but one of the ways I use the analogy is saying that on a playing field, if you're playing football, you knock people down. If you're playing baseball, they give you a bat and you hit the ball. But sometimes I think in cybersecurity, we're afraid of students at a young age learning how to hit the ball. But what you're saying is that it actually can reduce the risk because we give them a safe outlet. We give them a safe place to learn these skills. Is that a way to look at it?
I think so. If I can sort of extend your analogy, many parents will put their students in martial arts classes because they find that martial arts classes give them an ability to learn self-discipline and to learn how to use their physical strength in a constructive way.
The students that you work with at the college level, do they ever say to you, I wish I had played picoCTF, I wish I had played in competitions when I was going into middle school? Do they ever feel that, this is something that they really wish they had?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It was certainly the case that at the Air Force Academy, after I formed the team, graduates would come back and say, oh, I wish this was around when I was here. And there are students that I see in classes here who are like, oh, I wish I was able to get started in this in high school. And then we also see students who come here and get involved very specifically because they did do picoCTF. I can think of Zach Ways, a student I had dinner with this past week, and I talked to him about it. He's like, oh, yes, it was picoCTF that got me interested in computer security, got me interested in coming to Carnegie Mellon, and now he's a member of the cloud problem and opponage, and he's contributing to the development of the next picoCTF.
Do you promote picoCTF to places that are more computer science teachers association, or more in a STEM venue? Is there a need to kind of broaden the awareness of picoCTF to the greater community?
We try to reach out to associations of math and computer science teachers to let them know about picoCTF and to encourage their students to participate. And then we are eager for other people to help us get the word out. And we would like as many people as possible to have the opportunity to participate and learn from the challenges.
I was at a computer science event in town here last month, and I was trying to explain that one reason to have computer science students learn cybersecurity is simply to develop better coding practices, secure coding. Is there a case that you can make that what you do in picoCTF will help computer scientists do a better job in developing software?
I believe that is true. I can't prove to you that is true, but I believe that once students have seen how the various classic programming mistakes lead to such catastrophic vulnerabilities, that they will be more cautious when they develop software in the future.
So in this case, the more knowledge they have of what can go wrong, the better opportunity they have to avoid those problems when they become developers.
Yes, I mean, I think it's in some sense similar to, warnings we tell people about seatbelts. People know sort of at an abstract level that wearing seatbelts are a good idea, but then occasionally we'll put an example of a crunched up car along the side of the road and say like, hey, this person survived because they wore their seatbelt. And people sort of get a much more visual, oh, this is actually something really important. This isn't just some sort of silly rule that I can blow off.
Mm-hmm. So in this case, they need to understand what crunched up software really looks like, the accidents you can have with software as well as in the physical world.
Absolutely.
Martin, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast today. I wish you the best of luck with what you're doing. You have a wonderful program you're associated with and a wonderful group of students that are developing picoCTF. And I just hope it reaches a much wider audience in the future.
Well, thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate being with you.
Thank you, Martin. This has been the
Bye-bye.
NICE Competition Subgroup podcast.